Hey grade 6s! We've been talking about how the world began and how people got onto the earth and basically spread out throughout the earth. And one thing that we've learned and we've sort of talked about is that there are different feelings and different beliefs about how people got here. But one thing that the scientists all agree on, no matter what side they're on, is where life began on Earth. And life actually began in the small country of Iraq. And whether you believe that it was in a swamp there somehow, or whether the Garden of Eden was there, somewhere around the Euphrates and the Tigris River, life basically began on Earth. And then from there, people, as they multiplied and they had babies, they basically moved throughout the area. And they sort of expanded in a circle around that area. So eventually they would fill Africa, and they moved, some people would move north and they would fill the European areas, and other people moved northeast and they'd fill areas of Asia and up into Russia. And some of those people that moved northeast, they would have come as far away as this area here, which is in Siberia. And you can see in this little area of Siberia that it's really not that far from North America. In fact, if you zoom in, there's only about 100 kilometers that separates this area of Russia and what is Alaska today. And so the story goes that thousands of years ago, when these northern areas of North America and other areas were under glacier, that the glaciers used up part of the water that was in the oceans. And so this area would have been even smaller because the water was a lot lower. And there were even times that there was a land bridge across here that was frozen over. And the people could basically come up here and they would escape. Whether they were being pursued by enemies or something, they could escape into this brand new land. And this brand new land turned out to be North America, and in fact, all of the Americas. Well, what would happen is, this time, thousands of years ago, glaciers would be all over this area of both Canada and the US, basically all of North America. But you've got the warm Pacific Current here. And the warm Pacific Current would mean that a little strip of land, probably along the shoreline, was not under the glacier. And so these people that would come across the land bridge here could actually walk. Of course, it would take them years and that kind of thing. But they could go along there and they would get down into the south here where there were no more glaciers. And they could settle in areas down here. They could go into South America and into Central America where it was nice and warm and there was lots of food for them to eat. And you've got the Incas, the Mayans, you've got the Aztecs would all settle in that area. But eventually the glaciers started to retreat. And as the glaciers retreated, as it got warmer, the animals would move north and to fill in this new area. And following the animals would be the people and the native people that was there. All of Canada, the glacier eventually retreated, and the people basically moved up into these areas. Now, so that's how some of the natives would have got here, or one of the theories. The others are that they could have come over by boat, although it's unlikely that some of their canoes would have traveled across the mighty Atlantic Ocean straight across. It is possible they could have gone the same way that the Vikings did. The Vikings were from this area, and they would have they could have traveled to Iceland and made the trip there, and then they could have gone over to Greenland and then up into Baffin Island. And in fact, just this summer, scientists have discovered and archaeologists have discovered remnants of Vikings from more than 1,000 years ago. They have also discovered that the Vikings had settlements on Newfoundland and along the shoreline here. In fact, they've unearthed one settlement that you can go and visit today that involves the Vikings were there 1,000 years ago, and for whatever reason they left and ended up heading back, or maybe they got killed off, but they were there. Also in Newfoundland, when the natives were settling in this area, they have found along the coast of Labrador here a grave site that scientists believe to be almost 7,000 years old. And it's a grave of a 12-year-old boy, and the only thing they know about the people is that they did a lot with walruses, because there were walrus skulls and remains all around the grave site. So the natives have been here a long, long time. And yes, the Vikings did visit 1,000 years ago, maybe a little bit more, but they were here, and all of this happened long before our Americans to the south tell the story about Columbus sailing the ocean blue in 1492, and he actually never did set foot on the mainland of the U.S. He settled down here in the Bahamas and in the Caribbean islands, and that's what he first discovered. But that just opened the door to many other European settlers that came over and discovered our land of North America. So that's a little insight of how the natives got here thousands of years ago. And then you've got the latest native people, which would have been the Inuit. Well, the Inuit, with their kayaks and that, probably traveled across the Bering Strait again and settled into this land. But when they got here, they're relative newcomers for the native community. When they got here, the rest of the land was taken, and so they settled into the remote north, and that's where the Inuit remain today. So again, that's a good look at how the native people got to North America and how the world began with the peopling of the world.